Today we're going to do something a little different, and I'm going to give you my review of this guy, the Feiyutech AK2000 Gimbal. What's up guys, Reggie B Photo here and welcome back to the channel. For those of you who are new, my name is Reggie Ballesteros and I'm a wedding photographer based in the San Francisco Bay Area. So today we're going to do something a little different. Today we're going to be talking about the Feiyutech AK2000 Gimbal. So full disclosure, Feiyutech did reach out to me and they sent over this gimbal to me for free. However, they did not pay me or require me to say anything specific about this gimbal. Everything in this quick review is going to be my honest feedback about using it, so everything you can trust is my honest take on how this works, specifically with the Fujifilm X-T3. So as you guys already know, my background is primarily in wedding photography, so still photography, not videography, not filmmaking, not cinematography. So take this review with a grain of salt as this is coming from the lens of a wedding photographer's first gimbal. The Feiyutech AK2000 is my first try at using a full-scale gimbal for a mirrorless camera system. And again, specifically, I was using this and testing this on the Fujifilm X-T3. So as far as my videography and filmmaking skills go, I am still considering myself a hobbyist. The only type of creative filmmaking that I've done is either for YouTube content creation, doing talking head videos like this, but I've also done in the past some cinematic short films, mostly using the X-T3's 120 frames per second features and doing handheld video footage. Aside from that, I was excited to be able to finally use a full-size gimbal in order to do larger scale tracking shots, to do a lot of low angle tracking shots, and honestly just to do a lot of real-time footage that's not as shaky and more stabilized. So first and foremost, when using a gimbal, the main thing that we're looking for is stability. And from my hobbyist lens, the AK2000 is stable enough. The footage is not shaky at all, and I think anything that was lacking was mainly more of a lack of technique and familiarity with using a gimbal on my part than anything as an error or a malfunction on the hardware side. Any experienced gimbal operator is going to be able to get a lot more mileage out of the AK2000 than me, somebody who's only used it for a couple of days. And that's the truth. So the overall payload of the AK2000 is actually 2,800 grams. And I use this out in the field with the Fujifilm X-T3 along with the 16mm 1.4 lens for just under a little bit of 1,000 grams. So there was a lot of headroom as far as the motor capability to stabilize the system, and I actually had to power down the gimbal to one of the lower payload settings in order to not have any jitters when stabilizing the X-T3. And considering that the AK2000 is just $380 US and has a payload of 2.8 kilograms, this is pretty attractive if you're looking for a more budget-friendly gimbal if you're just trying to get started into videography just as a hobbyist, in comparison to the main competitor, I think, for the price point, which would be the DJI Ronin SC. And that will run you around, I think, $440 US, and that has a payload of 2 kilograms. Both gimbals are going to be more than enough to balance the Fujifilm X-T3 along with most of the popular prime lenses. Really going to be a matter of how serious you are about videography, your budget, etc. So again, from my hobbyist perspective, I really do think that the AK2000 delivers as far as stable video footage, and at the end of the day, that's all you really need to have from a gimbal. As far as ease of use goes, I really do like the touchscreen as it always keeps you up to date on what type of gimbal following mode you're on. It also lets you on there be able to calibrate, change the payload settings and everything without having to hook up your phone via Bluetooth. So the buttons are pretty straightforward, and I do like the scroll wheel for any type of panning or tilting precise movements. Unfortunately, the one thing that does suck is for the Fujifilm X-T3, there isn't a lot of firmware support just out in the entire gimbal market for gimbal support to do start and stop record of the Fujifilm X-T3. So the record button on the AK2000 is pretty much useless. But you know, what I did was I just kind of reach up, press record on the X-T3 and just edit that footage out. It's not a big deal. It takes 2 seconds in Premiere Pro to edit that out. So to me, it's not a big deal, but I know to some of you guys, if you don't have full support of the record and the start stop features of the X-T3, that's going to be a deal breaker for you. So I wanted to let you guys know about that. As far as setup and balancing goes, as a beginner, it was pretty daunting. It took me a whole day to kind of figure out how to balance the gimbal properly. One thing I wish it did have was the kind of like click stops on the gimbal adjustments for the axes, kind of like the Ronin SC, as when you change out the lens and you put a different lens on, you're kind of having to start at ground zero again to rebalance it, instead of kind of like having preset clicks to where you know you need to be. Another thing that's kind of a minor nitpick is that I didn't really like that the storage box didn't allow for the flexibility of you to store the gimbal in a pre-balanced state. So once you balance your camera on the gimbal, you're going to make all these minor adjustments to how the axes fit. But once you need to put it away in the box, you kind of have to undo all that stuff. So I actually instead just stored my gimbal in a backpack broken down, just because I didn't want to have to go through the act of rebalancing everything again. So as far as the form factor go, I believe the AK2000 is larger than the Ronin SC, and it's kind of more rivaling a little bit toward the Ronin S. I'm not really sure. I haven't tried any other gimbal, but to me, it's big in practice and it's kind of cumbersome to use out in the field if you're not purely just doing a videography job. So the way that I tested out this gimbal in the field was that on a family vacation to Disneyland with my wife and my 2 young kids. So carrying this around was pretty crazy. It actually didn't even fit that well in the stroller under compartment. So frankly, I was a little flustered and embarrassed to use it out in the field because it was so large and intimidating. But after the filming was all done, it was actually pretty easy to break it all down and store it inside the backpack because the handle can separate from the top gimbal part, and you can also take apart the bottom tripod handle. One other nitpick is when you did break down the gimbal, I wish you could lock the axes into place. That way they didn't wobble around inside the backpack. So as far as battery life goes, this is rated for I think 12 hours or so of runtime. For me, that was more than enough as a hobbyist, or even just out when I was doing some behind the scenes footage of a engagement photo session that I did. I handed the gimbal off to my friend and he was able to film the entire shoot. No problem at all. I don't have any concerns or issues about charging the batteries. I have heard that you cannot charge the batteries via the USB port on the gimbal itself. One nice thing is that the battery charger is a USB micro, so you can pretty much use that and charge it with any power bank that you want, as long as you have that cable with you. So again, as far as connectivity and compatibility with the Fujifilm X-T3, fortunately the AK2000 doesn't have full features available for the Fujifilm X-T3. So you can't start and stop the video recording. You can't also do the autofocus and capture with the photos. So I wasn't able to test out the time-lapse or the motion time-lapse features. Feiyutech did warn me about this, so I was aware coming into it, but I wanted to get a better matched gimbal for the payload and the size. The one that they suggested was the AK4500, which is a lot bigger and has a lot bigger payload and has a little bit more compatibility with the Fujifilm X-T3. But again, I'm going for something that's smaller for hobbyists and also just more accessible as far as affordability and budget, because again, I'm coming from the non-professional video side, so I wanted to give you guys kind of a genuine take on maybe an option that you would go out and buy if you weren't going out to get the Ronin SC. So for my needs, as far as a YouTuber for doing content creation and also just doing behind the scenes footage, I really do think the AK2000 fits the bill for what I need to do. I really just need a stable, longer lasting gimbal. And that will basically be this guy for the most part. And it also simplifies it if I have an assistant or somebody who isn't a videographer to be able to just hand them the gimbal and take footage of me while I'm creating content for YouTube. So if you're looking for a budget tier gimbal for your Fujifilm X-T3, I really do think that you should seriously consider the AK2000, just because it's a solid, stable gimbal and you're going to have a lot of payload options as far as lens selection that you want to do. And it's going to get the job done for the least amount of money possible. And sometimes that's what we're after. If you have any questions about the AK2000, about any of the sample footage I did, let me know down in the comments below. Be sure to subscribe if you haven't already. I post a new Fujifilm or photography video like these two every other week. And if you want to see more of my photo work, please follow me on Instagram at ReggieBPhoto for a new post every single day. Alright, that's it for me. Remember to get out, go shoot, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.